When I first learned about some of the different final events of Bible prophecy, I was given this little booklet. This little booklet called Country Living, written by Ellen White. And I started to read through it. There's some very nice thoughts in here and started just going through the sections. The first section is a call to leave the cities. This is something that we've been talking about over the course of these studies. Um, then there's other ones about appeal to parents and preparation for the Sunday law crisis, the no buy, no sell. All sorts of great information in here. There was just one problem, and that was as I was reading through the book, there was some seeming contradictions that were coming up as I was going through it. Um, one minute it's time to prepare, the next minute it's, the time is not yet. We're still waiting for the sign. And if there was an important book that you were studying and it had to do with salvational issues and big events like the final events of Bible prophecy, I think you might have some question marks too if you started seeing this. Now, what if I told you that one of these books that you were reading was maybe not put together in order? Because this little booklet here, and we're going to get into this, was originally published in 1946. So that's after Ellen White had passed away. Now, this is very interesting idea. It's very important that we understand the line of events. And I was getting confused on some of these issues. And I noticed that it wasn't just me, it was a lot of other people that were getting confused on some of these issues when talking about the final events. One person here says, oh, we're waiting for the sign, the next sign to take place, whether that be, Sunday law enforcement coming, and this is the sign to leave the cities. Or for someone else, maybe it's Satan's appearing. And for someone else, it's the image of the beast being set up. And for someone else, it's the Antichrist or whatever it may be. And I needed to figure out what was going on here. And through many different process and studying and learning, I noticed a couple key things that we're going to go over through the course of this study that I found out about this little booklet. And I'm not saying that I don't love this little booklet. I think this is absolutely fantastic and everybody should read this. That's why we offer this. But you need to keep some thoughts in mind, and I'll share what those thoughts are with you in a moment. Now, before we jump into the study, we're going to just start right away with a word of prayer. We're dealing with the final events. We're dealing with very heavy topics, and we need to know what the truth is. In order to do that, we need God's Spirit, so please bow your head with me in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you once again that we can come and we can gather together, even if it's through the screen. We ask for your Spirit to guide us as we go through this study, that we would come into all the truth. Lord, as the final events are happening rapidly, we need to know what is the next thing that's going to happen, and so that we do not be deceived. Lord, guide us now, be with all the equipment, and be with the people that are joining us now. In Jesus' name, amen. So just for context, for those who don't know kind of the premise of what we're talking about here, which is country living, last week we covered extensively about leaving the cities and why it's a really good idea to be leaving the cities. Now we're going to cover a little bit today when that is. And that's a very important point. Has that already happened? Is that something that's going to happen really soon? So we're going to look at this, and we're going to be dissecting this little book and finding out why there's some seemingly contradictory statements here. But first, let's go to Revelation chapter 13. Revelation chapter 13 and verse 17. Actually, we're going to back it up a bit. Right here to 14. Revelation 13, verse 14. If you have your Bibles, I really promote your physical Bible, getting your hands on it. Please put an amen in the chat. Verse 14, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live. This verse is going to start to become really clear by the end of the study. What's this image of the beast? We're going to touch on this a little bit. And how is it formed? Because a lot of people confuse that the mark of the beast and the image of the beast is the same thing, but it's not. So we're going to talk about that. Then if we continue down, it says here, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So this is pretty serious stuff. Verse 16, and he causeth all, not some, but all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. So there's an image of the beast, and then there's a mark that you can get. And here's the thing. Verse 17, that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, or the name of the beast, or the number of his name. So if we do not want to receive the mark of the beast or worship the image of the beast, which in the Bible, the beast is not a good thing, and the mark of the beast is a very not a good thing, which we do not want to have. And if you don't take that, you're not going to be able to buy or sell. So we went over, in order to be not affected by this, we need to do something called preparation, just like Noah did, just like Lot did, just like Joseph did. All these guys throughout the Bible prepared for events that God prophesied were going to happen. Now, when we're talking about this country living out of the cities preparatory for these events, what's the sign? What is the sign for this? And why is there seeming conflict in this little booklet? So now we're going to go to the slides, and we're going to take a look at some of these quotes here. And just give me one moment. There we go. Okay. Country Living, page 32. Now, here's a very fascinating thing. If you turn in this booklet and you go to the very last page, the last thing you read, which most people would think is the last thing to happen, or the last piece of the puzzle, right? It says emergency flight in closing conflict. That's a very fascinating statement. Emergency flight in closing conflict. Now, it doesn't actually say that in the quote, and it doesn't actually say that in the original reference. This is a title line that was added into this booklet that is not in the original. Okay? First note. So let's read what it says on the very last page, which you would expect is the last thing you need to hear. The time is not far distant. Okay, so that means we're not there yet, but the time is not far distant. When, like the early disciples, we shall be forced to seek a refuge in desolate and solitary places. So not yet, but soon. We're waiting for a sign still. As the siege of Jerusalem by the Roman armies was the signal for flight to the Judean Christians, so the assumption of power on the part of our nation in the decree Enforcing the papal Sabbath will be a warning to us. Okay, so now what the impression you're getting is we're waiting for America to enforce the papal Sabbath, which is enforcement of the worship on Sunday. But it's not here yet. The time is not far distant. Will be a warning to us. So we're waiting for this warning. When's Sunday law showing up? It will then be time to leave the large cities, preparatory to leaving the smaller ones, for retired homes in secluded places among the mountains. So the impression that I got, and that I think anybody would get, is okay, what do you do when you grab a book and you don't want to read the whole thing? You're going to jump to the last page. What's the punchline? Hey, we're waiting for this siege to show up. We're waiting for the Sunday law to show up. And then as soon as we see Sunday law show up, then, okay, we're going to leave the cities and we're going to go and find a home in the mountains, right? And this is what we were talking about last week, taking the Bible as it's written, because we're told that we need to be in homes in the mountains. Country doesn't just mean not in the city. It means in the forest, in the mountains. So that means that there's no rush yet because Sunday law is not here. That's the impression, right? But here's the thing. Something that we need to note. This originally is from Testimonies for the Church, Volume 5, page 464.3. And it was written in 1885. So I want you to sort of keep this in the back of your mind, these dates here. This is 1885. Now, remember, this little book, Country Living, it was originally produced in 1946, and which is much later than 1885. So let's take a look now at some of the other statements in the same book. Out of the cities, out of the cities. Well, that feels a little different to me. I mean, there's an exclamation mark there. This is the message the Lord has been giving me. So this is on page 31.4, and the point is for paragraph number. So there's a big difference in emphasis if you listen to that quote from the last page to this one. One is the time is not far distant. Someone's just given me some news that is quite serious. We'll get to this. Maybe we're gonna have to switch topics partway through. Someone just told me that the USA just sent a bomb to Iran. So that is, US has struck 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Trump says joining Israel air campaign. Wow. Okay. We might be doing a switch in the middle of this study. Just an announcement. We're working on a special presentation that's going to be recorded this week about what's happening in the Middle East right now, but this has made things a lot more interesting, a lot more serious, if I could put it that way. Probably I will talk a little bit about that later in the study. Right now, we're going to focus on this, but that means that this message is that much more important for you right now. So if you're distracted, put it away, grab your Bible, grab your paper, and go to the website finalcountdown.amazingdiscoveries.org and sign up for the newsletter. And also, you can get the study notes. So all the slides here, you want to be paying attention. And if you have anybody that you think maybe should be listening right now, send them the link. The things in the world are happening extremely fast right now. We are seeing the final events fulfilling as we're doing this live stream right this minute. Okay, out of the cities, out of the cities. This is the message the Lord has been giving me. This quote originally is from not fully originally, Life Sketches. But the one in Life Sketches is from Review and Herald, July 5, 1906. So logically, when you see that, there must have been something that took place between 1885, which was the first statement, and 1906 that shifted the emphasis here. And this is what we're trying to analyze. Now, can we narrow the gap? So if we look through this booklet, is there any more information that we can find? And there is. Now, before we go to that, I'm going to read the original context from the Country Living 31.4, where this is from, Review and Herald. And we're going to take a look at some of the original context here, because it is extremely fascinating. It was while we were still at Loma Linda, and this right here, maybe for some, is not as critical or intriguing. You know, she's just telling where she is. But that's not the case. And we're going to be doing some programs talking about some specific things around Loma Linda and the events that are still to happen that you need to be paying attention to. The second night after the dedication of the sanitarium, that there passed before me an awful scene of buildings shaken down and destroyed with great loss of life. Now, this is a very fascinating quote. A lot of people think that she predicted the San Francisco earthquake because this happened just before the San Francisco earthquake. But she says that this was not in connection to the San Francisco earthquake. And there's a very important reason why, which we're going to have to talk about in another video because we don't even have time to get into all those details. But you need to be looking at these things incredibly closely. For many years, we have known that the great cities would be visited with divine judgments. I mean, the Bible talks all about that. Because of long continued disobedience, in no uncertain words, the Lord has warned us not to establish large institutions in the cities. So, because of the judgments coming, we're not supposed to be putting our institutions there. Out of the cities, out of the cities. This is the message that has often come to us. And this is one reason why the Lord has been opening the way so wonderfully for the publishing houses, also known as Amazing Discoveries. We are qualified as a publishing house, publishing of material to share for people to do evangelism with. And that's, this message right here is why we felt so strongly about moving from the Lower Mainland by Vancouver to where we are now, up in the country. And it wasn't a small move to move a large ministry to the country, believe me. And this is one reason why, wonderfully, our publishing houses and sanitariums and schools to be located in country places. Out of the cities, this is the message the Lord has been giving me. The earthquakes will come. The floods will come. And we are not to establish ourselves in the wicked cities. Now we're going to get a little bit closer. Country Living 24.2. The time has come. Okay, so now we see again, it's come. It was not too far distant, but now it's already happened. And we're going to find out what happened that caused this shift. The time has come when, as God opens the way, families should move out of the cities. It's already come. Even if you don't know what the sign is, it's already here. You need to be moving. The children should be taken into the country. The parents should get as suitable a place as their means will allow. Though the dwelling may be small, so it's not about a big house, yet there should be land. It's about land in connection with it that may be cultivated. And we've gone over this a few times, given some key pointers, which maybe we can do that a little bit more later. on how big of land you need. We're going to have some whole studies on this, covering what you need to be looking for in a property. Now, this quote was originally from Letters and Manuscripts, 1903. So now we've bumped it a little bit tighter, 1885 to 1903. Country Living, page 21.1. The Protestant world have set up an idle Sabbath. So wait a second. So this was, remember, this was the original warning. If we look to the back of page 32, it says, the time is not far distant. It says, as the siege of Jerusalem by the Roman armies was the signal for flight, it says here, so the assumption of power on the part of our nation in the decree enforcing the papal Sabbath will be a warning to us. If that's the case, that means there must have already been a Sunday law, if that's what she's saying. Have set up an idle Sabbath in the place where God's Sabbath should be. And they are treading in the footsteps of the papacy. For this reason, I see the necessity of the people of God moving out of the cities into retired country places. For this reason, the necessity. So this is not an option. This is something we must do and we must be doing, where they may cultivate the land and raise their own produce. Why? Because they won't be able to buy or sell. And if you can't buy or sell, you'll starve unless you're growing your own food. Thus, they may bring their children up with simple, healthful habits. I see the necessity of making haste. There's haste involved to get all things ready for the crisis. Now, this statement was from 12 Letters and Manuscripts, 1897. So something between 1885 and 1897 took place and connected to a Sunday law that this is the sign. We need to get out. Why? Because here's the situation. When we look at the destruction of Jerusalem, there was 2 sieges. And we're talking about 70 AD. The Roman armies came, they sieged, and Jesus warned, he said, when you see the Roman armies come and they recede, that's your signal. Flee into the mountains and live in the mountains. Well, there must have been something where the first siege came, it went because there's no Sunday law right now, which means it came and gone, and that's the warning. It's time to move. We're not waiting for time. We're not waiting for a first sign. There's the first sign has already come. So what is it? Now, this is from the original now, not from Country Living. Giving context, the Sunday idol is set up as was this image. This is very fascinating. Human laws demand that it be worshipped as sacred and holy, thus putting it where God's holy Sabbath should be. Men speak great swelling words and exalt their power, placing themselves where God should be. Sitting in the temple of God, they strive to make themselves as God, showing themselves to be God. When Pilate said of Christ, I find no fault in him, the priests and elders declared, we have a law, and by our law, he ought to die. As the advisors of Nebuchadnezzar hit upon the scheme of ensnaring the Hebrew captives and causing them to bow to the idol by leading the king to proclaim that every knee should bow to the image. So there's an image that was set up in Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's situation here. So men will strive today to turn God's people from their allegiance. But the men who sought to destroy Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were themselves destroyed. Those who made cruel enactments seeking to destroy are destroyed by the recoil of their own actions. Petitions signed by thousands have been sent in. Take a listen. Asking that the civil and religious interests be not blended. What is civil and religious? That's church and state. That's something we're hearing all over the news right now, is let's get rid of the separation of church and state, bring it together. We need God back in the country. Those present in some of the large assemblies state that they witnessed the most disgraceful uproar and disorder. Clergymen professing to be in the service of God uttered blasphemies. Now, this is very fascinating because when we look at the book of Revelation in chapter 13, we see these blasphemies proclaimed by the first beast. But then it says that the second beast of Revelation 13 is going to say the same blasphemies. And we're seeing this. They're claiming to be like God and in the service of God, which is that lamb-like horns on that second beast. It looks like Christian, but it's uttering blasphemies. They care no more for the Bible and its holy teachings than do infidels. We talked about blasphemies in some of the first studies. So if you don't know about this, go back to the first studies of the final countdown, and we talked about blasphemies. We talked about all this chapter of Revelation 13, walking through the first and second beast. They are no more for the Bible and its holy teaching than do infidels. They care no more for the Bible and its holy teachings than do infidels. When men will lay aside a plain, thus saith the Lord, and accept human enactments, you may be sure that they are revealing the attributes of the great apostasy. So this is what we're supposed to be looking for. And she says it's already happened. So something between 1885 and 1897. Well, the first thing that we can find is this right here, National Sunday Rest Bill. This is called the Blair's Bill because it was by Senator H.W. Blair, May 21, 1888. That's a fascinating date because a lot of people talk about righteousness by faith and what happened in 1888 and the rejection of that message. Well, there's more that happened than just that. Senate Bill number 2983, introduced in first session of 15th Congress by Senator H.W. Blair as the Lord's Day as a day of rest and to promote its observance as a day of religious worship. So this was what was going before Congress as a Sunday law rest bill. This is exactly like the siege. We see like the Roman armies coming, we see this exact thing here. The Sunday law was threatening. Now, fortunately, there was many bastions who were refuting this. And we're going to go into a whole bunch of history of that. It's absolutely incredible. In some other studies, we're going to talk all about the Blair's Bill, some of the similarities that were happening then and the similarities right now, because there's actually some things that maybe you didn't even notice that are happening right now that are very similar to what happened then when that bill was coming forward. The Lonely Years, Volume 3, page 395. The routine business of the session, General Conference, while vitally important, presented only a few features of unusual interest. We're going to jump down to the blue. There was also consideration of measures to counter the Blair Sunday Bill before the United States Congress. Did you know this was something that actually the General Conference was involved with, was pushing back at the Sunday Law Blair Bill? This is very critical for us to understand this, that the first siege has already taken place. It's not something that we're waiting for. We're not waiting for Sunday to come the first time, and that's the warning to leave the cities. By then, it's too late. When you looked at the siege of Jerusalem in 70 AD, the Roman armies came, they left. The people who heeded Christ's message went and lived in the mountains. The rest stayed back, and they stayed in the city. And what happened to them? as they all perished in that destruction when the Roman armies came back. And they didn't die a martyr's death. They died a lost death because they didn't heed the counsel of Jesus, because righteousness is obedience. And if you don't follow Jesus' warning to leave the city, then he can't save you. We're seeing the same thing here. We already have seen the first warning to get out of the cities. And for some reason, most people have no idea that this has even happened. Most people don't know that it's time. They're not waiting for another sign, and they feel like when's the sign to leave? Now, yesterday, 100 years ago, 140 years ago, just about. We need to be studying like we've never studied before, and then we would know these things. Country Living, page 11.1. But ere long, there will be such strife and confusion in the cities that those who wish to leave them will not be able. And it's not that they'll not be able and be saved. It's they'll not be able and be lost. We must be preparing for these issues. This is the light that God is giving me. If Lot was still in Sodom when the destruction came, would he have been saved? And the answer is no. If Noah did not get in the ark, would he have been saved? The answer is no. This is very, very important that we are paying attention here and that we're taking heed to this. There's a warning that those who wish to leave will not be able. And why will they wish to leave? It's not because they want to be obedient. It's because the destruction is coming to that city. It's because there is war, there's pestilence, there's all the things that are falling on this city, and there's no way out. I mean, when a disaster strikes, I don't know if you know, when a city has some kind of catastrophe, it's locked down, and it's done very quickly. Grocery stores have 3 days worth of food. Now, if a crisis happens, it's less than that because people start panicking. Fuel stations, same thing. So when a crisis hits, there's no preparing. You don't prepare in the crisis. It's happening. You have to prepare before the crisis happens. There's going to be no time. The final movements will be rapid ones. And if you're not ready before they hit, you're going to be unready when they hit. It's a storm that's coming, relentless in its fury. We need to be prepared. If you don't know a tornado is coming to your house, there's nothing to prepare for. You need to be aware before it hits. Great Controversy, page 605.3. And a lot of you might be thinking this very thing. Heretofore, those who present the truths of the third angel's message have often been regarded as mere alarmists. And maybe some people are thinking this right now. MacKenzie, you're just an alarmist. You're just trying to scare people. I'm not trying to scare anyone. I'm actually trying to give hope to people. I'm trying to make them ready. I'm trying to make them that they're encouraged to have obedience, that leaving the city is not the end of their life, that this is the right thing to do, and not have the same argument that Lot did. Oh, I don't want to go to the mountains. I want to go to this town. I want to go to this place in the valley. I want to go over here. Don't argue with God. You'll lose your entire family in the process. You need to be obedient, and obedient immediately. Their predictions that religious intolerance would gain control in the United States, that church and state would unite and persecute those who keep the commandments of God, have been pronounced groundless and absurd. Now, maybe it's less absurd now. It has been confidently declared that this land could never become, other than what it has been, the defender of religious freedom. But as the question of enforcing Sunday observance is widely agitated, Very much so right now. The event so long doubted and disbelieved is seen to be approaching, and the third message will produce an effect which it could not have had before. The message is going to have effect now because people can see in front of their own eyes the things that are happening. Now, there's this fascinating statement. Just give me one moment here. By Uriah Smith. And this just shows like the thought process back then, and how the process actually, that's a couple quotes down. I jumped a little bit ahead of myself here. Now, we had just talked about the Blair's Bill, 1888. But there's something else that happened after that that maybe you guys don't know. And that's what this quote is talking about. But alas, Congress has already turned its back on its sacred trust. To fawn upon the church influence so rapidly rising, when the managers of the World's Fair of 1893, so many people have heard of the World's Fair. This is a fascinating point. In Chicago, asked Congress for an appropriation in their behalf. Churchmen brought their influence to bear upon the national legislators and induced them to make it a condition of the gift that the gates of the fair be closed on Sunday. In carrying this point, a most remarkable scene occurred. A senator called for a Bible and caused the clerk to read the fourth commandment. But here's the twist of the Decalogue, whereupon grave statesmen argued, and at length by vote, this was voted for the World's Fair. This forever changed this definition in Congress, that the day enjoined by that commandment as the Sabbath is Sunday. Not Saturday, not the original Sabbath, but Sunday. This was voted in. So now when you actually see in court or anything like this, any of the blue laws, when it says the word Sabbath, the definition by vote is now Sunday. And you can thank the World's Fair for that. This is some fascinating history. And this was in 1893. We're going to continue here. This was legislating upon a religious question, which the Constitution expressly forbids. It broke down the barriers against the union of church and state. So here we see that broken barrier. And this, now we're getting to the point where we're coming to what the image is. And open the floodgates for all the evils that invariably accompany such a union. The religious amendment, clergy hailed the event as a great triumph, and now openly boast that they have Congress in their hands and can compel it to do their bidding. How far away, then, is that image? That's the image of the beast he's referencing here, the coming of which the scriptures have foretold. So what is this image? This image that is a warning when we see it coming, when we see it happening. Great Controversy, page 445. When the leading churches of the United States, uniting upon such points of doctrine as are held by them in common, shall influence the state to enforce their decrees and to sustain their institutions, then Protestant America will have formed an image So here's the thing. When we look at Revelation chapter 13 and verse 14, it says that this power is going to make an image. What's an image? When I look in the mirror and I see something that looks identically like myself, that's an image. Now, it's an image to the beast. It's not an image to a law. It's an image to a beast. And what is a beast? A beast represents a kingdom. We went over this in some of the earlier studies. You can see that in Daniel chapter 7, verse 16, 17, and I believe 21 to 23. If you look there, you'll see that a beast represents a king or a kingdom. So if it's making an image to the beast, the first beast, and who is the first beast? The first beast is the papacy. And we talked about this in one of the earlier studies. If you haven't seen it, go back there and review. If it's an image to the papacy and it's looking like the papacy, that means it's acting like the papacy. So the image of the beast is not the same as the mark of the beast, because that's the mark. It's mark. That's not the beast. So if America is making an image to that beast, it's going to look like the papacy. It's going to look like Rome. And what did that look like? Well, one, and we're going to get into a lot more detail on this in some later studies, Revelation 17, whole bunch of things. And furthering what's happening here. And we're also going to take a look at Ellen White's chart, because she does have a prophetic chart. And if you didn't know that, you need to go to our Judgment Day studies, judgmentdaydocumentary.com, and go to study 9. I believe it's study 9 talks about Ellen White's chart. So it was a universal power, the beast. It was a persecuting power. It was a blasphemous power. It changed times and laws. It was a church-state structure. So that means that America is going to do the same thing. Eventually, it'll be a worldwide power, not just one of the world's leading powers. I'm talking worldwide. NWO. Things like this. There's so many things that we breeze over in the Bible because we're not reading it carefully enough. So this image of the beast, when it starts to act like the papacy, and when the churches start influencing the state, then the image is formed. Let's go back to the slides. Then Protestant America will have formed an image of the Roman hierarchy, and the infliction of civil penalties upon dissenters will inevitably result. Penalties on people who don't agree is just inevitable. I mean, if you have the church involved and they're making religious laws, there's going to be penalties because they think that's the best way. Whenever the church has obtained secular power, she has employed it to punish dissent from her doctrines. That's history. Protestant churches that have followed in the steps of Rome by forming alliance with worldly powers have manifested a similar desire to restrict liberty of conscience. An example of this is given in the long-continued persecution of dissenters by the Church of England. During the 16th and 17th centuries, thousands of nonconformist ministers were forced to flee from their churches, and many both of pastors and people were subjected to fine, imprisonment, torture, and martyrdom. It was apostasy that led the early church to seek the aid of the civil government, apostasy from God. And this prepared the way for the development of the papacy, the beast. Said Paul, there shall come a falling away, and that man of sin be revealed. So apostasy in the church will prepare the way for the image to the beast. So when we start seeing these churches doing these things, we know it is right around the corner. Daniel Revelation by Uriah Smith, page 579. This I thought was fascinating because back in that day, I mean, America was freedom of religion. It just fled persecution from Europe. So why are they going to go and start doing the same thing? Well, this is what he has to say. The objector may further say, you are altogether too credulous in supposing that the masses of our people, many of whom are either indifferent or wholly opposed to the claims of religion, can be so far brought to favor the religious observance of Sunday that a general law can be promulgated in its behalf. We answer, the prophecy must be fulfilled. Amen? This is faith in the truth. And if the prophecy requires such a revolution, because back in the day, no one would even dare think that America would enforce religious laws, it will be accomplished. To receive the mark of the beast in the forehead is, we understand, to give this assent to the mind and judgment to its authority in the adoption of that institution which constitutes the mark. By parity of reasoning, to receive it in the hand would be to signify allegiance by some outward act. So even if it seems so unlikely that America will do this, it will happen. The marvel of nations. When I read this, I said to myself, this is exactly what we see happening now. It is so similar. The opposition to the religious amendment manifested in many parts of the country, especially the liberal or infidel element, is thought by many to be an insuperable barrier in the way of its success. So there's too many liberals. There's no way this could actually happen. But if we mistake not, this is the very stimulus which will excite its friends to such exertions that it will ultimately be secured. So this push is what is actually going to excite it to happen. For the opposition assumes such an aggressive attitude. Do we not see that exact same thing happening right now? That no neutral ground is left. You're either woke or you're on the far right. An irrepressible conflict is precipitated. It must be victory or defeat of the most decisive kind with either party. The government must become nominally wholly Christian, or in reality, wholly secular. It's going to go one way or the other. And we have the playbook, so we know exactly what way it's going to be. But it might be well to inquire what has given liberalism its recent impulse toward the secularization of the state. It is not the national reform movement itself. We heard nothing about the demands of liberalism, nor their specially aggressive work, till the amendmentists began to seek the aid of the civil power in behalf of religious customs and dogmas. This naturally threw the liberalists into an active defensive movement under the menace of loss of their civil rights. Thus, the amendments find that they have conjured up a demon which they would now fain exorcise. Neither party can recede from the position it has taken. The crisis must now come, and the amendmentists see no way to meet it on their part, but to carry through to the desperate end the movement by which it has been precipitated. This is so similar to what's happening right now in America. It's unprecedented. We have the left, we have the right, and they are clashing so hard, and it's going to cause a synthesis to the right. And that's what we know this to be a fact, because we know exactly what's The Bible's predicting that they're going to make laws about persecution with religious laws. It's not going to be just about your political preference. It's going to be connected to the mark of the beast and the image of the beast. It's going to be a church state structure. And we see this happening right in front of our very eyes. The things that are happening in the world are so incredible. I mean, it's blinding speed that we see things happening. We've already seen the first siege. Now that you understand, this book has amazing quotes. Read them in context of the dates. That's very important because then you'll be able to see what was before and what was after, because there is an emphasis change, because the sign that we are waiting for has already come, which means that you need to move now, not wait. You need to move now. And I just want to remind everyone, I didn't say this earlier, that this is live, which means that if you have questions, you put them in the comments and we're going to answer them, as many as we can. This is what we do every single week. If you have questions, we answer them every single week. People need their questions answered. The final events are happening, folks. There is so many things that are just back to back happening. What we just heard, that the US has bombed Iran, this is unprecedented. This is something that we cannot ignore. There's connections to what is right now happening in the Middle East. And I don't want anybody to assume, I know everyone's going to say, oh, futurist, all of this, the state of Israel. No, we're not. This is not about the state of Israel or futurism or anything like that. This is about what's in the Bible. And let's read it like it's written. It's not about a people of the Jews. It's about facts that are going to take place. And the Bible is telling us in Revelation many things that are to come. We're told that the events connected to the close of probation are clearly presented. And we need to study these things because what we're seeing right now is connected to those very things. Now, I've been being sent some different things, what's happening right now. Let me switch my screen sharing for a moment. And we're going to open up some of this and take a quick look. I hesitate to start a gigantic study right now. If anybody wants me to get into this, we can. Let me know. These are important times. These are very important things that is happening in the world right now. I'm going to open up a bunch of links here that was just sent. Okay. If there's interest, we can go through some of this. And if there's people having questions, because what's happening right now is critical. Sorry, I'm going to explain all the things that I'm pulling up here right now. And then if we want to, we can continue into a study. But we do have a special program that we are working on right now, talking about all of this to break this down. Okay. Okay, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to take some questions on what we were just talking about to knock it off stream. And then those people who would like to stick around, if we take a look at some of this, can. And those who can't, at least their questions on what we are talking about already has been answered. So we're going to take some of those questions. Okay. There is some questions directly connected to what we talked about tonight, and some that are a little bit separate from that. We'll take a look at several of these here. Okay, so we have a question from Rowan Tilbury, and the question is: in vision, where Ellen White saw Enoch, the angel said that Ellen White with the 144,000 will visit these worlds. If you are faithful, Ellen White is part of the 144,000? Question mark. Pioneer stated Ellen White taught the 144,000 started back then. Have you read the little booklet by Jan Loughborough called The Questions on the Sealing of the 144,000? Yes, and unfortunately, I kind of disagree with Jan Loughborough on that. From what I have seen in Ellen White's writings, it is extremely clear to me that the 144,000 had started to be looked at, but the problem was the sealing could not have been completed because the rejection of the messages in 1888. We will do a whole study on the 144,000. It says that Ellen White is with the 144,000, and that does not mean that she is part of it. Now, the only argument for that is not just that the word with, because you could argue that that means that she's part of it, but there's several other quotes that we'll be going over in that study talking about the 144,000 that show that she was not part of it. She's part of another group, which we'll be taking a look at. This is a very important question. It's also something that's quite lengthy. But one thing that we have to keep in mind is the 144,000 are living saints. And this is talked about actually in Uriah Smith's book. This is talked about by Ellen White. And another thing that is mentioned by Ellen White is that the 144,000 sealing time, the sealing is completed during Sunday law. So unless you're alive during that time, you're not sealed into the 144,000. So that's a very important contextual piece there. But we'll be going into a lot more study into that in an upcoming study. Kavetta Jane's question: if we find ourselves not sealed with the 144,000 as Adventists, will it be too late for us? The short answer is yes, because that is the sealing time for God's people, those who are giving the loud cry message to the world. And those who are sealed from it are called the 144,000. And they're not just called the 144,000, they are 144,000. And that's a whole nother topic. Is this literal, spiritual, all of this? Well, according to Miller's rules, if we find something that breaks natural law, that is regarded as a symbol. Now, does it break natural law for it to be literal 144,000 people? No, that's not against natural law. If it was 144,000 billion, then that would break natural law because there is not that many people in the world. But this does not. And the closing work of the church is the sealing of the 144,000. I can pull up that quote very quickly right now. And this is from Testimonies, Volume 3, page 266.2. Testimonies, Volume 3, 266.2. And I'll share my screen. The true people of God who have the spirit of the work of the Lord and the salvation of souls at heart will ever view sin in its real sinful character. They will always be on the side of faithful and plain dealing with sins, which easily beset the people of God, especially in the closing work for the church in the sealing time of the 144,000 who are to stand without fault before the throne of God. So you can see this very clearly. This is the closing thing that is going to be taking place in the church, which is God's people. It's not a 501c3. It is a group of people, a movement of people that keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus, which is the spirit of prophecy. That's what Revelation says. So we are striving to be part of the 144,000 because that's the time that we're in. The 144,000 are the ones who are giving the final loud cry. They're going through Sunday law. They're going through the time of trouble, all this, and see Jesus come. So I hope that gives a start of an answer to your question. Okay, there's a follow-up question about this. Sarah Miranda, and we'll jump back to some of the other questions. Sarah Miranda, so you are saying only 144,000 SDAs will be saved in the end. I'm saying only 144,000 SDAs will be saved and alive at the end. I'm not saying that, though. The Bible's saying that. That doesn't mean that right now there's not more than 144,000. There absolutely is. But some of them will be laid to rest. But here's the thing. We're told that in, 100 years ago, there wasn't even 1 in 20 in the church that were righteous. So if we think it's less than that now, if there's 20 million and you're talking about 1 in 20 and it's less than that, so it's less than 1 million in that time, then I'm guessing it's less in our time. And there's a lot more I could say on that, actually. That's very fascinating, but I think we don't have time to go into all those details. When we look at Revelation 7, it's 144,000 of Israel, and the Israel of today is God's people. And they're going to be giving a message to the entire world, and there's going to be many, many, many people who are going to be coming in because of the message, which is don't receive the mark of the beast and don't take the mark of the beast so you don't receive of the plagues. And all those people are going to be coming in. They won't be classified under the 144,000 because they're not the ones who are giving the message. They're receiving the message. They're part of the harvest, though. There's a lot of nuances there that we'll discuss in another study. Okay. So we have another question here. Barbara Beck question, will the Ezekiel 9 video be on YouTube? Actually, it is already. The Ezekiel 9 video is on YouTube. I don't remember what study number it is, but it's one of the Judgment Day studies. So if you go to judgmentdaydocumentary.com, it's about the judgment of the living. So I think there might even be a part 1 and part 2 to that one. Okay. Jasmine is asking, what if there are no mountains in your area or country? Well, this is the call to be like Abraham then, and that is to move countries. Abraham was asked to do it, and I believe that God's people today are asked to do it. We are asked to do drastic things. Why? because the world is going to be under the most terrible time the world has ever seen. And if the time of trouble is so severe, then we need to be doing severe things to prepare for it. And if that's moving countries, then it's moving countries. And God will help you to do that, because he doesn't ask you to do something that he doesn't help you to to actually accomplish. But this is a very real thing and a very real serious consideration. Now, I moved 2,000 kilometers because where I was didn't have mountains. And that's several countries in some places of the world. In Canada, that's barely half the country. But if you have to move, you have to move. If you have to change states, if you have to change countries to find mountains and all the stipulations, I remembered now. I was talking to the team earlier and I was saying, what did I say I would do one of the next soon presentations about? And it was the criteria for a country property. That's what it was. So mountains, what size land, all of this. Okay. I wrote it down and let's take note. If you guys can also write it down so that nobody forgets. But it's a very real thing that we need to be preparing, because the destruction that's coming on the world and to these populated places and to the valleys and everything, it says in the Bible that going to the plains is not good enough. It needs to be the mountains. That was the whole last study. So if you didn't see, go to the last live stream and you're going to see all the verses that we talked about this. Okay. Candy M. Could MacKenzie please give us the quote that tells us that Ellen White had a vision about the 1850 prophetic chart? I know that she endorsed it, but I never seen that she had a vision about it. There's actually several quotes for this. So I'll give you a few here. And you know what? I should probably pull them up on the screen. Okay. Okay, here we go. This is 15 MR, page 210.3. Monday, we returned to Dorchester, where our dear brother Nichols and family live. There in the night, God gave me a very interesting vision, the most of which you will see in the paper. God showed me the necessity of getting out a chart. I saw it was needed, and that the truth made plain upon tables would affect much and would cause souls to come to the knowledge of the truth. So if you haven't seen, go to our 9th study in the Judgment Day series, and there is a ton of these quotes there. So this one is very fascinating because Brother Nichols is the one who actually published the chart, and she was in his house when she had the vision. Then she has this vision about a chart, and she connects it to Habakkuk 2:2. That's what this is right here. This is actually a direct reference of the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2 and verse 2, talking about these tables that need to make the truth plain. Now, let me go to a little bit farther down to page 213. Right here. Okay. My dear brother and sister Loveland, I hope to send you some papers soon. The chart is being executed in Boston. God is in it. Brother Nichols has the charge of it. I do want to see you, but I do not see how we can leave here at present. Let me say to you all, follow the light given at Sutton. Amen. Be strong. Much love to every wholehearted soul in your little band. James White. So this was in response after the vision was had. They talked to Nichols. They got him going on the chart. And there's much more about this. There's even descriptions where she describes some of the beasts that are supposed to be on it and how they're supposed to be drawn. But that's a great start. But go to number 9 on the Judgment Day study series, Ellen White's chart, and there's a lot there. Okay. Tara Clennon. If we move into the hills and mountains, how will we be able to minister to the people because it will be far away to walk to? This is a very good question. And it's a very interesting one because I would like to change some of the phrasing. So she said here, if we move to the hills and mountains, how will we be able to minister to the people? And I'm going to leave it at there for a moment. Now, let me find a quote here. What is the verse? What is the reference I'm thinking of? Country Living. That's the book that we were just talking about. And if we can share the screen. Country Living, page 30. The cities are to be worked from outposts, said the messenger of God. Shall not the cities be warned? That's exactly what you're asking. The answer is yes. Not by God's people living in them, but by their visiting them to warn them of what is coming upon the earth. Now, here's the thing. You added something, and it says too far to walk to. And I think I know why you said it. Because you're thinking, okay, in Sunday law, for me to get to New York, it's probably a good 7-8 month trip to get there. If I'm, using oxen or horses or walking. So here's the problem though. The problem is that you're assuming we're going to be ministering in these large cities when we're not able to get to them. Now, as the message is given out, and this might hurt some of your guys' brains, the message goes from the large cities and it goes smaller and smaller and smaller in reference to how far we can actually transport. There's going to be large cities destroyed, and they're going to be destroyed out of mercy as warnings to people to leave the other cities. And we talked about this last week. When those things start happening, we're not to be going to those big cities. Number one, if we can't, travel that far, we can't get there. The other thing is the warning has already been given to these cities. We're supposed to be doing that now. If you're thinking to minister to New York later, the best time is now with technology, when we can actually do a large event, when we can do online, we can send, do videos, we can do all of these things. That's when we're to do that. As we move and as things change, our message changes to more local. That's why the final work is the right arm. Medical missionary work, direct contact work. It's shifting from the large, grand scale evangelism, smaller and more personal, all the way down. So I know that seems like a crazy thought, that we're not going to be working in these major cities, but there's content still online. There's there's things people are going to be seeing and they're going to be hearing, and whatever it is, and they're going to hear about your country place, and they're going to say, "Hey, I need to come to the country. I need to jump in the ark before the door is closed." So that's what our call is. We're to be Noah and we're to prepare, and that is our message. And when we do that, God will bring the people. Deborah Collins. Question: Iran, Israel, USA. Do you think this will open the Eastern question with Turkey and fulfilling Daniel 11:44? Oh, I like this question. Okay, I'm going to come back to this question. We're going to answer some of the other ones first. So, Deborah, don't go away, or anybody else for that matter. And if anybody else left or whatever, share the link again with these people. Okay. Manual AD. Okay, sorry. I'm jumping around here. Manuel, there is an urgency to leave the city. Shall we go in 2 or 3 like Lot in order to escape the judgment? Now, this is a great question. And the answer is yes. I think it's fantastic if we can go together. That doesn't necessarily mean you all have to own the same property, but if you're like right close, property to property, or, things like this are fantastic. Now, don't go into a partnership with someone that is going to tear you down, that is not on the same page. Doctrinally, they need to be 100% on the same page. Little things will tear you apart. Be very careful with that. But I think yes, because Ellen White says that it's going to be small companies. We see that with Noah's Ark. It was him. It was his family. It was the animals that were inside. That was a large group of people. Lot went. He tried to take his family. Unfortunately, he hesitated. So please don't hesitate. If you want to save your kids and you want to save your wives, your husbands, leave now. And that's a warning to them. And when I say wives, I mean like multiple men, each with their own wife. Yes, there's an urgency. And if you can help each other, I think that's great, because the more people we have, the easier it is. One person can do a job at 1 time speed. 2 people can do it faster than twice the speed. 3 people do it faster than that. So every time you add someone, the efficiency gets a lot better when you're doing manual things like this. So it's extremely helpful to do that. Okay. Tara Clennon had a similar question: how we minister to the people in the cities during the mark of the beast if we're in the mountains. You can't minister to someone in the city if you're in the city. You're not going to be able to, because how are you going to survive there if you can't buy or sell? God isn't going to miraculously feed you, because he never promised that. He only promised that after we're fleeing to the mountains. And I'm not talking your mountain home. I'm talking to the way wilderness, where we're fleeing into the caves and God is giving us manna and our bread and water will be sure. But when we're talking about Sunday law, there's no way you're going to be able to minister, because you're going to be taking the mark of the beast if you're still in the city, because you're starving to death. And that is the warning. That's the siege of Jerusalem. When the siege of Jerusalem came the first time and it let loose, and then the people who were obedient left the city, they went and lived in the mountains and they grew their food and they did their thing. The ones in, they started starving. They started eating each other. They started eating their children. It was absolute horrific things that were taking place. And we're going to see time of trouble such as never was, which means it's going to be worse than that. Jen Hill, a friend watching, asks, can you explain why our church does not explain the three angels' message with the midnight cry in the context? We do. Go to the Judgment Day documentary website, go to the Judgment Day studies, and we do connect the midnight cry fully to the three angels' messages because you cannot separate it. And the reason is because there's stuff in here that people don't want to hear. That's the unfortunate truth. There's stuff in here that people don't want to hear. We have a very solemn message to give, and it's not a friendly, like not one that's popular, not one that everybody wants to hear, not one that pleases the crowd. So we need to be just making sure that we are staying straight on the truth. I have a whole study on the connection of the midnight cry to the three angels' messages in the Judgment Day study series. Okay, we're going to go to this question that was about Daniel 11, verse 44. There's one other thing. I'm going to answer this one other question really quickly. How far does the country property, this is Roxana, how far does the country property have to be from the mountains? I checked ours. It's about 40 minutes walk. Is this any good, or should I buy a bicycle? I would think that's an okay distance. That's just my personal opinion. I think a 40-minute walk is totally acceptable, as long as you're still under all the other criteria of what we're counseled in the Bible and the spirit of prophecy. And pray about that. A bicycle might not help you in the mountains, but I think that is a decent distance. Okay. We're going to go to this question now. And it's from Deborah Collins. Question: Iran, Israel, USA. Do you think this will open the Eastern question with Turkey and fulfilling Daniel 11:44? I think we need to pray again in order to start this. I have a lot to say. There is so much to talk about here. And I'm just going to go as long as God tells me to. And for those that have to go, they can come back and watch later. And for those that can stay, have your Bibles handy. We're going to be tearing up the pages. So let's actually try not to tear your pages. I'm very delicate with my Bible. Mine doesn't look all torn up. I have like one little corner that's torn, and that made me cry almost. So let's pray, and we're going to jump right into this. Lord, please give us wisdom. The events are fast fulfilling, and we're going to answer some very critical, demanding, and contentious questions right now regarding what's happening in the Middle East and your message. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. First, we're going to take a quick look at some of these headlines, and then we're going to show you exactly what's happening right now. If we can share the screen. U.S. has struck 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Trump says joining Israel air campaign. This is unprecedented that America is getting involved at this stage of the game. This is going to change a lot. This shifts the path of the war. I mean, you guys don't even understand what this means, especially in regards to Bible prophecy, which we're going to talk about here in just a minute. Trump confirms U.S. carried out very successful attack on Iran. I think I need to share my audio. Sorry, let me do this one more time. Okay.
Donald Trump says America has carried out an attack on Iran. He's posted to Truth Social saying we have completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear sites and that all planes are now outside of Iran airspace. President Trump also adding now is the time for peace. The White House a moment ago just releasing that information as well. That is their press release, is Donald Trump's Truth Social statement, sending it out to the world. Donald Trump obviously said that he was going to give it 2 weeks to wait. Obviously, that was just talk because he has been in the Situation Room this morning. Significant government officials have been by his side, and this is the result that we are now seeing 3, what he calls successful strikes on Iran nuclear sites. This is a significant escalation.
Absolutely, and we did see in reports all over different media outlets about the bombers that were stationed at Guam as well. I think that was just a sort of a telltale sign that something was brewing and something was coming.
Now there was a feeling that they were going to use those B-2 bombers to drop bunker busters. They are the only planes capable of doing that. We do not have that information at the time.
Okay, before we look at any of the other news, I want to address a bunch of concerns that I know people are going to have, a bunch of questions, bunch of statements saying, oh, this is, Fritris, this is, we know who the king of the north is. And I'm going to answer from the Bible all of these things, address all of this. People are saying there's nothing to see here, nothing to see, it's nothing. When the Bible is telling us things and we hear people saying there's nothing to see, peace, peace, and then what? Sudden destruction. This is very, very scary when people are saying there's nothing to see here, especially when there's so much overwhelming evidence. All this that's happening right now is talked about here. Erdogan vows, that's the president of Turkey. Erdogan vows to boost Turkey's missile production as Israel-Iran war escalates. Turkey is one of the powerhouses of the Middle East area. As far as military goes, it's second to America. So this is not a tiny thing that we're talking about. Iran warns U.S. intervention in conflict with Israel risks all-out war. Jesus said, before I come, there's going to be war and rumors of wars. And what kind of war? The Bible actually says. So, and we're going to show this to you. Erdogan attempts to rally the Muslim world against Israel. This is, okay. First, I need to address a couple things, and then we're jumping in here. This right here is a booklet that Amazing Discoveries has put out, and it's every quote that Ellen White ever said on the book Daniel Revelation by Uriah Smith. I really highly suggest that you get this. It's called Exposing Deceptions on Daniel and the Revelation. You can either download it or we can send this to you. Next thing. This is a book called The Eastern Question. The Eastern Question by A.T. Jones. We started republishing this. I highly recommend that everybody take a look at this. Now, what is the Eastern Question? Some people have never heard of the Eastern Question. And then some people have never heard that there's something called the Western Question. So there's an Eastern Question, a Western Question. This was foundational Adventism if we go back 100 years. But it disappeared. And there's main reasons for this, big reasons for this. Should it have? No. Did it? Yes. Why? This is one of the reasons. This book right here, The Certainty of the Three Angels' Message by Louis F. Weir. This is one of the most dangerous books that have ever been written. This is what Ellen White's talking about when she said books of a new order. This is spiritualism. Now, if you read it, you're going to think, wow, they quoted Ellen White. They did a whole bunch of stuff. They're talking about the final events. Seems great. The problem is, this book, it puts forth a set of hermeneutical Bible principles rules of prophetic interpretation, 13 of them, and they directly oppose this, which is called Miller's rules. And Ellen White has instructed that all Seventh-day Adventists need to use Miller's rules for study. Well, Miller's rules and Weir's rules are directly opposite from each other. So either you follow these or you follow these. And I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and I believe that we should follow the counsel that the Spirit of Prophecy says. So I'm going with these. And you know why? Because every single one of them has Bible verses to go along with them. They're just called Miller's rules because he put them together. Now, critical that you understand this. We're going to take a look right now at something unprecedented. I don't even know where to start. There's so many places that we could be talking about. Okay, the initial question was Daniel 11, verse 44. Go to Daniel 11, verse 44. Okay, we have even more stuff that just came in. This says Russia tells U.S. not to strike Iran, warns of nuclear catastrophe. I don't have that one pulled up. Let me pull it up. This is worth pulling up. Can you send that one to me? And we'll pull this on the screen. And then people are going to see why. Oh, wow. This presentation that we're working on is more important than I thought it was. And we've been working on this for a week. God's timing is the right timing. Russia tells U.S. not to strike Iran, warns of nuclear catastrophe. Okay, everyone, I need you to pay attention. Have your pen and paper in hand right now. We're going to be going through 1 billion Bible verses in the next few minutes. Okay, so hold on to your hats. Daniel 11, 44. If I'm going too fast, post some questions because I'm just going to be zipping through here. The questions come to me about a minute delay because of the stream, so I can't respond in real time. It'll be a little bit of a delay, but if you send them, the team will send them over to me. This is a team effort to put on a live stream and have everything going forward. So thank you to the team. Daniel 11. Okay. There's a concept called the Eastern question. What does it mean? The question is here's what it means. The question is, what is the East have to do with Bible prophecy? That's the Eastern question. What does the East have to do with Bible prophecy? And then the Western question is, what does the West have to do with Bible prophecy? Well, a lot of people actually talk about the Western question without even knowing it in regards to Sunday law and the mark of the beast and the image of the beast being formed in America. This is the part of the Western question. It's part of the Western question. Okay, we need to get this idea here. Daniel 11. And I know I'm going to blow everybody's concepts out of the water here because there's so many evangelists and pastors and teachers that have this so confused. And why? Because they've gone and done spiritual interpretation. Jacob, can you grab me these quotes on the spiritualizing of the scriptures? I really need those, the literal versus the spiritual. If you can grab those for me. We're going to start in Daniel 11. And actually, we're going to start in Daniel 7. Why are we starting Daniel 7? This is like fundamental prophecy seminar stuff right here in Daniel chapter 7. Okay? No one's going to argue with this because everybody knows this. So Daniel 7, and if we were read verse 16, and you know what? I almost wonder, well, okay. In order for us to move quick, I'm going to read from my Bible, and you know what? I'm going to actually open up my whiteboard, and then we can kind of make some notes of this. So I can write this down on the screen so that you guys can see. If you haven't yet, grab a piece of paper and a pen. take screenshots, do whatever you need to do. Okay. I'm just pulling this up here. So we're starting in Daniel chapter 7. So Daniel 7, and we're going to read verse 16 and 17. And there are some very critical points here that you've probably missed. Maybe move your mouse just slightly to the side. There we go. I came near unto one of them that stood by and asked him the truth. Okay, so we're going to write down this word here, truth. So Daniel wanted to know the truth of all this. So he told me and made me know the interpretation. So truth equals interpretation. Everybody good with that? Truth is interpretation. So the not truth is the symbolized version, which is beasts and horns and wings and all this kind of stuff. But then the plain truth, the plain straight truth, is the interpretation. Okay? I'll make that a capital I. Verse 17, the beasts, okay? So now we're going to do something here. We're going to do symbol / truth. So we have here the beasts. The symbol is beasts, which are four kings, right? Most of you should know this. Okay, if you're studying Bible prophecy, this is very, easy to understand. This is very common knowledge. Wow. Okay. Jacob sent me way more quotes than I was expecting he would send me right now. So we'll read through some of these. I'll have to pull them on the screen. So we have symbol, which is beasts, and literal kings. So when we see the word beast in prophecy, do we think it's a literal beast? Well, no, obviously not. If we see a beast with, lion's head and leopard's body and bear's feet and wings and four-headed leopard and stuff like this, this is not literal. Now, that symbol needs to be interpreted into a literal or the truth, which is the word kings. So the word kings, is that a symbol? Well, no, that would be breaking the Bible rules. Do you see this? Symbol is beasts, literal truth is kings. Okay? So now let's go to Daniel 11. Because again, we don't want to use human reasoning. We want to use pure Bible teaching. Daniel 11, and we're going to look at verse 2. I'm going to make it blue because I do all Bible verses in blue. Daniel 11, verse 2. And now I will show thee the truth. Oh, wow. Look at this. Which means he's going to show him what? The interpretation. Is he going to show him symbols? No. He's not going to show him symbols. He's going to show him the direct truth, the plain, straight truth. Okay. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings. Oh, now we're confirmed because it has the word kings. We have the truth being shown here. Kings. So now we don't have any symbols to interpret. It's just kings. And the first ones are in Persia, the next ones are Grecia, and then we continue through. Well, this is fascinating and very simple. Now, before we continue, you have to get this really. Do not let your preconceived ideas control what the Bible is trying to say here. We're letting the Bible interpret itself, okay? Really critical. Now, I'm going to share my screen again for the quotes, because these quotes are very important. Very important. And then we'll come back and we'll continue through Daniel 11. We're not sticking to Daniel 11. Believe me, there's a ton of other places we're going today, but for the argument's sake, we have to start there. The truths most plainly. Okay. And this first one, we're looking for GC 598.3. Now, again, what did we just read? We just read that the truth, the plain truth, no symbols, so it's easy. And now look what's being said here. The truth most plainly. Does that mean it's garbed in symbols? No, it's not garbed in symbols. Revealed in the Bible have been involved in doubt and darkness by learned men, who with a pretense of great wisdom. So these teachers look like they're super smart, great wisdom, amazing teachers. Teach that the scripture have a mystical, secret, and spiritual meaning not apparent in the language employed. So when we're reading Daniel 11, even though it says truth, it's not what's actually written there. It's the spiritual version of that, because it's not talking about real kings and real north and real south. It's actually spiritualized. But right here, we're being told that these men are false teachers. I'm not saying this. I just have to abide by it. It was to such a class that Jesus declared, "Ye know not the scriptures, neither the power of God." This is strong stuff. I highly recommend you go and read the rest of this in context, but we just don't have time to read it all right now. We're going to jump to the next quote, which is on page GC, page 360.1. GC 360.1. Concerning the popular system of interpreting or misinterpreting the scriptures, Wolf wrote, the greater part of the Christian church have swerved from the plain sense of scripture and have turned to the phantomizing system of Buddhists who believe that the future happiness of mankind will consist in moving about in the air, and suppose that when they are reading Jews, they must understand Gentiles, and when they read Jerusalem, they must understand the church. And this is what's happening in Daniel 11. People are reading Daniel 11, which the angel said, I'm going to give you the truth. And he talks about the kings, which is a literal word. And people say, no, this is not talking about the locations in Israel. This is talking about the church. Now, is that true? And, the dangerous place is on either side of the ditch. You're either spiritualizing it, or you're saying that it's literal Jewish people who are living today, instead of reading what the Bible says. The Bible doesn't say Jews in Daniel 11. It's talking about a location, not people. So let's continue to Acts of the Apostles. AA 474.2. The followers of Christ will meet with the enticing words against which the apostle warned the Colossian believers. He will meet with the spiritualistic interpretations of the scriptures. That's what we're seeing right now. But he is not to accept them. Don't believe it when they spiritualize things that are literal words. We are not to spiritualize away these scriptures. Okay, we're going to go to the next quote. 1 SM, First Selected Messages, 196.3. Physicians, have you been doing the master's business and listening to fanciful and spiritualistic interpretations of the scriptures? Interpretations which undermine the foundations of our faith. So these spiritualizing away, those same people are going to tell you, this is bad news. The Eastern question, nothing to see there. Uriah Smith, nothing to see there. Don't even consider taking a look at these things. I think I have, let me see here. I think this is the book. This was sent to me from one of our team members. This book right here, it looks incredibly old. And it looks incredibly old because it is incredibly old. This book is copyrighted, and I'm going to be very careful with it. Now, you guys can't see that, but it says 1888. This is a very old book. Now, what book is this? If you can read here, it says Bible Readings for the Home Circle. Okay? This was a staple book in all Adventist homes. Now, if I go to the contents at the start of the book, I'm going to go to the prophetic sections. And right here, you probably won't be able to read it. On page 291, it says the Eastern question. The Eastern question on page 391. So what are we going to do? We're going to go to page 391. This was understood by all Adventists. It was in our main book here, Bible Readings for the Home Circle. Many of you have probably heard of this book. You have to get the 1888 edition. The modern ones, they changed it all. Page 391. Right here. Oh boy. Okay. It's going to shock you what's on the page here. It's basically showing what's on the news today. It says the Eastern question. It has Turkey highlighted. It has the Persian bear. And it has the Russian Empire. And it starts on the 11th chapter of Daniel. And Tyre is a literal historical prophecy, the longest and most remarkable of its kind in all the scriptures, beginning with the first year of Darius the Mede and passed through the remainder of Persian history, and then continues on. But it's a literal historical prophecy. And if we go down to where it talks about verse 40 to 44, this is what everybody's talking about right now. I'm going to put a bookmark here for just a second. I would find one of these if I were you. You can also download digital from our website, the 1888 edition of Bible Readings for the Home Circle. We're going to come back to this guy in a moment. We'll just set him here. Okay. That wasn't the last quote. We're going to go now to 5 BC, 1089.1. Okay. We're going to jump down here. And yet, though his doctrine seemed new to the people, it was in fact not a new doctrine. What I'm going to share with you today, you're going to think is brand spanking new, but it is brand spanking old. And it's in the 1880 edition of Bible Readings for the Home Circle. It's also in the 1897 edition of Daniel and Revelation. It's also in many places that Ellen White talks about. It's also in the Eastern Question by A.T. Jones. It's all over. Okay? Not new doctrine, but the revelation of the significance of that which had been taught from the beginning. What do we call that? The old paths. Here's the problem. It was his design that his disciples should take the plain, unadulterated truth for the guide of their life. They were not to add to his words or give a forced meaning of his utterances. They were not to put a mystical interpretation upon the plain teaching of the scriptures and draw from the theological stores to build up some man-made theory. It was through putting a mystical meaning upon the plain words of God that sacred and vital truths were made of little significance. Well, the theories of men were made prominent. And this is what we see right now and what we're going to address today, because I can't wait any longer. Because there's been too much false doctrine being taught, and the final events are happening, and you need to know. This is not new. I haven't made any of this up. I haven't conjured it up myself. It's all our original understandings, right from our church doctrine. Okay? Our original foundations. So this is talking about the omega of apostasy. Now, if we go down, I need to find the section here. I think I jumped down too far. Okay, right here. You know what? I'll just read it from, I think I jumped too far again. I'll just read it from the top. We are now to be on guard and not drawn away from the all-important message given of God for this time. Satan is not ignorant of the result of trying to define God and Jesus Christ in a spiritualistic, used here in reference to a system of interpretation, not spiritism, popularly called spiritualism, way that sets God and Christ as a non-entity, etc. Now, why am I bringing this up? Because people often think spiritualism is like spiritual formation, or is actual spiritualism where they talk to the dead and things like this. That's not the original spiritualism that Ellen White was addressing. A lot of the spiritualism was spiritualizing away the scriptures, where it's making symbols of things that are literal. That's changing our interpretation of prophecy, the spiritualism of prophecy. So now I'm going to switch back to the whiteboard, and we're going to continue diving into this. Okay. So we have this literal historical prophecy that's being talked about. If we go to verse 40, Daniel 11, verse 40, and at the time of the end, and I'm going to write it here so that nobody gets lost. Daniel 11, verse 40. Okay. And at the time of the end shall the king of the south, we're going to put an S, push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind. Okay, there's our whirlwind. With chariots, we're going to draw a nice, simple little chariot here. Okay. With horsemen, I'm not going to draw a horse, and with many ships. There's our ship. Okay, good enough? And he shall enter into the countries and shall overflow and pass over. Let me ask you a very, very, very important question. Is there anything here that breaks natural law? According to Miller's rules, bookmarks in here, on rule number 11, okay? I'm going to put MR, Miller's rule, number 11, is how to understand if something's a symbol or if it's literal. Now, it has to break natural law. So beast with 7 heads and 10 horns, and it, speaking blasphemy and doing all these things. That breaks natural law. Is there anything here that a king that's north of Israel, because that's what we're talking about here, a king that's north of Israel is going to war the king that's south of Israel, and he's going to come at him with chariots and horsemen and with many ships. Anything unrealistic about a war like that? No. That's because it's not unrealistic. It's a totally real war. Now, it says in verse 40, and at the time of the end. Time of the end. Now, when is the time of the end? And I told you guys that we are racing through this. Ask questions and we'll hopefully come back, but pay attention to everything that's being said here because we're going to go really quickly. How do we answer this? The time of the end. When is the time of the end? We go to Daniel chapter 12. Okay. Daniel 12, the very next chapter. And we're going to start at verse 4. But thou, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book even to the time of the end. So the time of the end is when the book of Daniel is sealed. Now, the book of Daniel has been opened. And when was it opened? And Daniel asks, when is this going to happen? When is the book going to be opened again so people can understand? And then he says in verse, let me just find it here. Verse 7, and I heard the man clothed with linen, which was upon the waters of the river, when he held up his right hand and his left hand unto heaven, and swear by him that liveth forever, that it shall be for a time, times, and a half. So we have a time, a times, and a half a time. Now, what is this? We're going to get on a little quick, tiny side tangent. A time is 360, not 306, 360 days, biblically, okay? We're not going to prove this right now. A time is a year, and a Bible year is 360 days. Times would be twice that. So now we have 2 years, okay? And then we have a half, which is 180 days. And this equals 1,260 days. But the thing is, in Ezekiel chapter 4, verse 6, it says that a day equals a year. So that means this actually is 1,260 years. And did this actually take place? It 100% did in 538 all the way till 1798, which is exactly 1260 years. The papacy reigned. So we have exactly 1260 years. So when is the time of the end? It's after the 1260 years end. Right here is our time of the end. TOE is the acronym, time of the end, that I use. So now if we go back here, in verse 40, that means there should be a war that is between three kings, north, south, and there's someone else called Ahim, okay? And these guys are warring. And it has to be in the year 1798. Now, was there a war in 1798? Well, in fact, there actually was. And you guys can look it up. The Battle of the Pyramids. Okay, go take a look at this. Now, who was involved in this war? Well, the king of the north would be north of Israel. I actually need to now share a map if we're going to do this correctly. Because in order to explain this properly, you guys really need to understand what's going on here. Okay. And I'm going to go back to Bible readings for the home. Map, Middle East. Okay. We're going to go to Google Maps. Now, if we take a look at this map here, and we look at Israel as the center point, and we look south. What's south? Well, Egypt is south of Israel. And what's north of Israel? Well, north of Israel is this country called Turkey, which in 1798, because remember, in verse 40, we're talking 1798, Turkey enveloped all of Syria and Lebanon. This was all Turkey. And that is what was directly north of Israel. So the king of the north in 1798 would have been the Ottoman Empire or the Turkish dynasty. Now, as we go through Daniel 11, the king of the north is always the northern part of the Grecian Empire because that's what's divided. You know, if we look at Daniel 8, there's a goat with 4 horns. And I'm going to actually do this. Goat, 4 horns, Daniel 8. And let's take a look at an image here. And let's see if I can find this one right here. Okay. So we have these 4 horns. And this was the 4 winds that they were directed in. And we have Thrace, we have Syria, we have Egypt, and we have Macedonia. This is actually wrong. Someone moved this horn. I need to find the correct one now because now everybody has the wrong image in their mind. This is the sneaky thing. People are changing history. Right here. This is what it should be. This little horn, because remember in Daniel 8, let's go there quickly. Daniel 8, people need to see this. Daniel 8, and we're going to read. And let's start at verse 3. Then I lifted mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram. Okay, there's this ram, and it has 2 horns, which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other. Just like in Daniel 7, on the bear, one shoulder was higher than the other. This represents Media Persia, the 2 horns, Media and Persia. And we're not guessing this. It literally says this in verse 20. Okay, so we're not making any assumptions here because the angel interprets it and says, the ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. Okay, no assumptions. Let the Bible explain itself. So we have this ram, this strong ram. And it says in verse 4, I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward. So if he's pushing west and north and south, where is he located? He's located in the east, right? Because he's come from the east and he's going west and south and north. Okay? So Persia should, by definition, or whatever this kingdom is, which is Persia because the Bible says so, should be in the east. Now, if we look at a map of the Middle East, right here, what is east? Well, Iran is in the east, and Iran is Persia. Okay, if anybody didn't know that, this is Persia. This is the kingdom of Persia, is Iran. Okay, back to the Bible. So is this kingdom of Persia literally east? Yes. Did it literally push north, south, and west? Yes. So this is the point. These directions are literal. They're not spiritual directions. They're literal directions with this ram. That's something really important. Numbers are always literal. So it says there's 2 horns or 10 horns. There's 10 kings. It's not spiritually 10 kings. It's literally 10 kings. And these directions are literal too. Now, if we keep going, it says in verse 5, and I was considered, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth. So where's he coming from? Spiritually west or literally west? Literally west. Where's Greece? In comparative of our compass here, it's west. Perfect. It matches the Bible. Amazing. Simple. Easy. Let's not overcomplicate this. Okay. Now, the goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between its eyes. One big horn. Okay? Started with this one big horn. And I saw him close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and broke his 2 horns. So it took out Media Persia, which obviously that's what Alexander the Great did, the king of Grecia, which the Bible actually says the ram or the he-goat is Grecia. And the first big horn is the first king, which is Alexander the Great. But then it says something interesting. In verse 8, therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken. And for it came up 4 notable horns toward where? The 4 winds of heaven. Okay, so they went north, south, east, and west. It's so simple. Let's not spiritualize this away. If we could see what the Bible's saying, we wouldn't be confused and prophecy would be simple. My whole goal is to try and show you guys that prophecy is utterly simple. But all these spiritualizers are trying to make it complicated, so you have to keep going to them to hear the truth. Okay, now let's go back to Daniel 11. And it says, and I also, in the first year of Darius the Mede, I stood to confirm, to strengthen him. Now will I show thee the truth. The truth of what? Daniel must have been showed something that wasn't the truth. He must have been showed symbols again, like he was in Daniel 7. Well, what symbols? The only symbols left is Daniel 8. So Daniel 11 is actually Daniel 8, but the full story. This is absolutely amazing, which means it has to do with Media Persia and then Greece. And these are the players that we're dealing with here. Now we'll show thee the truth, which means the interpretation, which means no symbols. There shall yet 3 kings in Persia, and the 4 shall be richer than they all, and his strength through his riches he shall stir against the realm of Grecia. Verse 3, and a mighty king shall stand up, that shall rule with great dominion and do according to his will. And when he shall stand up, his kingdom shall be broken. Sounds exactly like Daniel 8, no different. And he shall divide the four winds of heaven, and not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion, which he ruled, for his kingdom shall be plucked up, even for others beside those. Okay, back to the screen. So when this took place, and Alexander the Great died, his kingdom was divided to the four winds, and it was north, south, east, and west. Let me just get a map of this. Greece, four winds map. Oops. I had a little bit of a spelling error there. Okay, I might not have a perfect... You know what? I have another better map. I'll get to that. That I can show here. Let me pull this up. I'm going to try pull up a map here. Of exactly what we're talking about. This is critical. This is absolutely critical. So if you see on this goat, it has Egypt, Syria, Thrace, and Macedonia. Now, Macedonia was the western part of the kingdom. Okay, this was part of the west, was Macedonia. And notice this little horn comes out of one of the four horns. And that's what it says in Daniel 8. That's actually one of the verses I didn't read here. Verse 9, and out of one of them came forth a little horn. Now, which one? Well, obviously, it would have to come out of the one where Rome is. And that would be the Macedonian horn. And on the original Adventist charts, it shows this little horn coming out of Macedonia, which is the west. Now, why is that so important? If it is coming out of the west and Rome is from the west, could it be the king of the north? Well, obviously not, because it's from the west. And this is one of the most interesting points. I'm just opening. Okay. Wow, maybe I should just go through this whole presentation. Okay. Literal or spiritual? We're going to jump down here. You know, I was just going to show the map. So if we have more questions, we can get back to that. So here is a map of the four regions: north, south, east, and west. Okay. And this farther west area is from Macedonia, and that's where Rome is coming out of. So here we have the divisions where it has Cassander, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy. And these are the divisions. So now, when we go back to the Bible first, so we can pull off the slides for a minute here. And we go back to Daniel 11, and we've seen it started out with Persia, then it went to Greece, and it was north, south, east, and west. Very simple. So now when we get to verse 40, it's just the same thing that's been the whole entire time. It's talking about the king who's ruling the northern part of the Grecian Empire. Who is the king who's ruling that area now where Constantinople was? And that is the defining factor. So now we're going to go back to Bible readings for the home. And if we go okay. Let me find it here. right here. So on page 393, I'm sorry if you can't see it. I'm pretty sure you can't. It says, what movements then does verse 40 call for according to the application made here? The breaking out of hostilities between Egypt and France and between Turkey and France, all in the year 1798. Okay? So we have this war that needs to happen in 1798. What we see here, verse 40, and at the time of the end, the king of the north shall come against him, the him who is previously talked about, and in Bible readings for the home, it calls that him France, and that's a whole different discussion. And then it says, shall come against him like a whirlwind with chariots, with horsemen, with many ships. And, oh, sorry, I skipped. The king of the south shall push at him, and the king of the north shall push at him. So south, Egypt, north, Turkey. And we should see a war like this. It says, what is the testimony of history at this point? It testifies that these very events did occur in that very year. Napoleon, on the strength of fancied Egyptian provocations, entered upon his Egyptian campaign in the spring of 1798 and was making an easy conquest of the country. When Turkey, through jealousy of the French and through opposition to their designs in Egypt, fostered by English diplomats, declared war against France on the 2nd of September of that year. England and Russia were in alliance with Turkey in this struggle, and their navies furnished the many ships of the prophecy, while their aid added to the whirlwind onset of the Turks. Okay, so we have a direct literal fulfillment of this very literal, simple prophecy. And in order to find it, all you need to do is a war between Turkey, France, and Egypt in 1798. Google that. Wikipedia literally will bring it up. It's so simple. And go look in the book Daniel Revelation by Uriah Smith. He does an excellent job of this. Now, if we continue down, there was a point I was going to address here. It was when I was reading. Okay. Now, what some people, a lot of people say, the king of the north is the papacy. Because the original king of the north, they say, was Babylon. Is this true? Actually, it's 100% false. Babylon was never the king of the north. It's not even north. So if we look at our map here of the Middle East, and you see where Israel is, Babylon was literally directly east and a little bit south. So it totally does not apply, could not even apply to Babylon. Now, they say that there's verses, there's not one verse in the entire Bible that says Babylon is the king of the north. Never, 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 never. It's always in the area of Turkey, Constantinople. The northern part is always the king of the north. So one of the kings in the north was actually Assyria, which was in the area of Turkey. It's always been north of Israel, which, how could the king of the north not be north of Israel? I mean, that's exactly what the whole Bible is talking about here. Now, a lot of people will say that this is spiritually Babylon, and so then it's the papacy. The problem with this is it says this war is happening in 1798. Well, when did the papacy receive its deadly wound? In 1798, but not just 1798, February 15, 1798. So at the start of the year, it's already out of the way. And it's obviously not going to be doing too much because February 15, deadly wound, it's out of the way. It has no ability to do these wars here. Now, unless you want to break the Bible and say, well, that is not actually happening in 1798, then you don't believe the Bible. then you don't believe 1798 is the time of the end, then you don't believe Daniel, and it's just a disaster if we start to do this and we start to question it. So we have this. Now we need to go down to verse 44. And this is where things get really serious. And we could go into a lot more detail. I'm going to be very careful with this 140-year-old book. If we look here, is there any other thing in Daniel 11, verse 40? And our point is 44, but 40 is really important to set the stage. That could tell us that this is actually the people that we're saying it is Turkey. Well, we have chariots, we have horsemen, we have whirlwind, we have ships, we have all these things. Let's go to Jeremiah. Get your pen and paper. This is not in the study notes. I'm sorry. We're going off script. Jeremiah chapter 4. Jeremiah 4. And we're going to start in verse 5. Declare ye in Judah, and publish in Jerusalem, and say, blow ye the trumpet in the land. Gather together and go say, assemble yourselves, and let us go into the defense cities. Verse 7, the lion is come up from his thicket. So keep all these. I'm switching back to my whiteboard. I need you guys not to miss any of these critical elements here. Okay. So we have, I'm going to go back to Daniel 11 just to write down these things again. So we have chariots. We have ships. We have horsemen. We have a whirlwind. And it doesn't say it is a whirlwind. It says like a whirlwind, right? So it's using that as a descriptor. Like he came in here like a whirlwind. You know, that's exactly how it's using it. Okay. Now we're going to go to Jeremiah 4. And I want to move this down a bit. Move this down here. And we're going to Jeremiah 4. And we're starting in verse 5, and we're going to go all the way to verse 13. Jeremiah 4, 5 to 13. Okay? It says the lion. Okay, we have another descriptor here, and you're going to see why I'm adding this here. Lion. And it also connects it to a trumpet. So we have a trumpet. Okay. And it's the destroyer of Gentiles. What's another word for Gentiles? They're people who are against God, disobedient to God, not God's people, the opposite of God's people. And it's the cities are going to be laid waste. It's going to waste / destroy. Okay? Then, if we jump down to verse 11, at that time shall it be said to this people and to Jerusalem, a dry wind, of the high places in the wilderness toward the daughter of my people, not to fan or to cleanse. So this wind that's coming, it's not a good one. It's not the cleansing. It is to cause waste and destruction. Okay? And what does wind represent in the Bible? Wind equals war. Wind is war. And you can look this up, Ellen White, you can look this up in the Bible. Wind is war. Okay? Verse 12, even a full wind. So now we have full wind. So if you have a partial wind, it might be just from the east. Oh, there's an east wind, there's a north wind, south wind, west wind. If it's a full wind, that means it's from all four corners. / four winds. Even a full wind from those places shall come unto me. Now also will I give sentence against them. Behold, he shall come up as clouds. Clouds. And his chariots, oh, there's the chariots again, shall be as a whirlwind. There's the whirlwind. His horses, there's the horses, are swifter than eagles. Woe unto us, for we are spoiled. That is quite something. Now, let's go to the book of Revelation. If we go to Revelation, chapter 9, okay? Revelation, chapter 9. You know what? I need another section here. Revelation 9. What's taking place in Revelation 9? It is the 5th and the 6th trumpet. And we just seen trumpet connected to chariots and horsemen and whirlwind and destruction and all of this in Jeremiah and in Daniel 11. So now we have this trumpet. And let's take a look at verse 2. And he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, and the smoke of a great furnace, and the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke. And there came out of the smoke locusts. Okay, so I'm going to write locusts here. And you're gonna see what's happening here really soon. Locust. Upon the earth, and unto them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have power. Let's jump down to verse 7. And the shapes of the locusts were like unto horses. There's the horses again, prepared unto battle. So these are war horses. So this is like a wind. And on their heads, as it were, crowns like gold, and their faces were as the faces of men. So horsemen. And they had hair as the hair of women, and the teeth were as the teeth of lions. So we have teeth of lions. And we have these locusts that are like horses, and they're prepared unto battle. And it says, and they had breastplates as were breastplates of iron, and the sound of the wings was the sound of chariots, of many horses running to battle. And then it says, the one woe is past. So Revelation 9 is talking about the 5th and 6th trumpet, which is the first woe and the second woe. Now, according to Great Controversy, GC, page 334.4. Let me check this. just to make sure I'm saying the right thing here. GC 344.4. 344. Yes, 334.4. Okay. 334.4. The fifth and sixth trumpet have already taken place, but we're waiting for the third woe. This has not happened yet. Now, we're seeing a connection to this player here. The chariots, the horsemen, the whirlwind, the lion, the clouds, the locust, the teeth of lions, the woe, the full wind, the waste, and destroyer of Gentiles, trumpets. Okay? Now, we're going to go from here. There's so many places that we could be going right now. Okay. We're going to go back to Daniel 11. Back to Daniel 11. Now, this locust, who is the locust? Okay, we have to prove this out. Go to Judges. Judges, chapter 6. Judges, chapter 6. Stay with me, everyone. Judges 6. And we're going to write this. Where did I write this? Down lower. Judges 6, verse 5 and 6. And then we're going to go to 7, verse 12. And then we're going to go to 8, verse 24. Okay? Judges 6, 5, and 6. And Israel was greatly impoverished because of the Midianites, and their children of Israel cried unto the Lord. Now, I'm going to back up. I'm going to change this to verse 4. And I need some water. Okay. Verse 4. And they encamped against them and destroyed the increase of the earth till they came unto Gaza. You're going to start seeing some incredible connections here. So they came unto Gaza. Now we go back to verse 5. And they came up with their cattle and their tents, and they came as grasshoppers or locusts. It's the same creature, grasshoppers and locusts, for multitude, for both they and their camels were without number, and they entered into the land to destroy it. So these Midianites are like locusts, and they destroy the land. Go to 7:12. 7 verse 12. And the Midianites and the Amalekites and all the children of the east. So now this is the children of the east, lay along the valley like grasshoppers for multitude. Now we go to 8 verse 24. And Gideon said unto them, I would desire a request of you, that you would give me every man the earrings of his prey, for they had golden earrings, and that earring there was actually a crescent earring, crescent moon earring. It says, for they had golden earrings because they were Ishmaelites. So the locusts are the descendants of Ishmael. These are the Muslim nations that are being talked about in the Bible right now. And we have this king of the north, which is connected to the whirlwind, the grasshoppers, the horsemen, the whirlwind, the chariots, the trumpets, all of this. Okay? Now we're going to go to the book of Joel. I told you, we're going everywhere. The book of Joel. The book of Joel. Now you're going to see this. This is absolutely amazing. The book of Joel. It's basically the whole book. And we're going to go down to verse 4. That which the palmworth hath left, hath the locust eaten, and that which the cankerworm hath left, hath the caterpillar. That which the palmworm hath left, hath the locust eaten. And that which the locust hath left, hath the cankerworm eaten, and that which the cankerworm hath left hath the caterpillar eaten. If you study this out, each of these insects is actually the same insect. It's just 4 stages or kinds of locusts: the chewing locust, the flying locust, the swarming locust. They're all locusts. Now, if we go down to verse 6, for a nation. So what are these locusts? They're a nation. And that's what we see. It's like beast. In prophecy, we see beasts. This locust is a beast representing a kingdom. It is a nation. Revelation 9, the locust is a locust power. It is the locust beast signifying a nation. And in Great Controversy, it's the Ottoman power. That's what Ellen White says in Great Controversy 334.4, that this is the Turkey government, or the country of Turkey, the Turkish power. So it's a nation. It says, come up upon my land strong without number, just like in Judges, whose teeth are the teeth of a lion. Where did we see that? In Revelation chapter 9. Now we're going to go down. 10, the field is wasted. We've seen wasting in Jeremiah. And all these things are going to start flowing. And it's just absolutely incredible. Now, if we continue down, verse 15, alas for the day of the Lord is at hand, and as a destruction from the Almighty shall it come. So this nation is going to come and it's going to destroy, almost as if God sent it to destroy. And who's it destroying? The Gentiles. Now it says in verse 17, the seed is rotted under the clods. The garners are laid desolate. It's desolating. The barns are broken down. The corn is withered. How do the beasts groan? The herd of cattle are perplexed because they have no pasture. Yea, the flocks of sheep are made desolate. Verse 19, O Lord, to thee will I cry, for the fire hath devoured the pastures of the wilderness, and the flame hath burned all the trees of the field. So we have another descriptor now, which is fire. Now, if we quickly jump back to chapter 9 in Revelation, keep your thumb in Joel, Revelation 9, and if we go and see Revelation 9 and verse 17, and thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were the heads of lion, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone. So now we have fire, we have smoke, and we have brimstone. These are fire-breathing locust horses. And that breaks natural law, which means it's a symbol. And then Joel tells us that's a nation, just like Daniel does. And this is the nation of the people of the East. And specifically here, we're talking about one specific locust that is in the north. Now, if we go to chapter 2 of Joel, Joel 2, blow ye the trumpet. We see the trumpet again in Zion and sound an alarm. What is the trumpet? It's an alarm of war. So these locusts are bringing war. The winds, the whirlwind, the war of the four corners. Excuse me. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord cometh. It is nigh at hand. What is the day of the Lord? If we look in Revelation 16, the day of the Lord is the day of the plagues. 18 verse, if we go to Revelation 16, you can see that, but also Revelation 18, I believe it's verse 8. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day. For strong is the Lord God who judgeth her. She shall be utterly burned with fire. This is crazy, guys. This is absolutely unbelievable. The day of the Lord. So this is the day of the plagues, the year of the plagues that is coming. And it says in verse 2 of Joel 2, verse 2, a day of darkness. We've seen darkness in Revelation 9 connected with the smoke and with the locust. Now, if we continue down, verse 3, a fire devoureth before them, and behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them, and behind them a desolate wilderness. It's desolating. Again, we see all the same symbolism here. Verse 4, and the appearance of them is as the appearance of horses, and as horsemen, so shall they run. It's always the same power. I mean, we can continue down here. We don't even have time to go through everything here. But it's so incredible, the detail. Now let's go back to Daniel. We're not done going in other places yet. We got some more places to go. But we're going to take a detour back to Daniel just to get our bearings again. Okay, locusts. Someone asked, locusts don't break the rules of nature, but locusts that are like horsemen and are fire-breathing definitely defy the laws of nature. So this is definitely breaking the laws of nature. Now we go back to 11. And remember, now this is not symbol. This is literal. This is literal here. Nothing's breaking the laws of nature. So we have the king of the north, which is Turkey. And it is Turkey all the way through. Let's go down to verse 44. Daniel 11:44. And I'm going to draw something here. So we have, this is basically the sea here. This is Israel. Right there. We have Turkey. We have Iran. And then actually north of here, we have Russia. Okay? One second. Okay. Now, verse 44. But tidings out of the east. Where was the east? What kingdom did we see pushing from the east? And he was pushing westward and northward and southward. That was Persia, right? Which is modern day Iran. And we're going to put this here. Persia. Okay? And we're going to put east. According to the Bible, this is the east. So tidings out of the east. So we need to be hearing. Now, this word tidings means news. So if we're looking at this, we should hear news about a war regarding Iran. But tidings out of the east and out of the north. So this king of the northern part of the Grecian Empire, there should be news from north of him, which is Russia. There should be news here of war. Shall trouble him. So Turkey, the king of the north, will be troubled. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly to make away many. This will cause him to be angry and to destroy. Is that not what we've seen? The other prophecies was saying that the locust power, this is going to destroy. And then it says in verse 45, and he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Now, this glorious holy mountain, there's no symbols being said here. This is location, purely location. This is not Jews. This is not the people. This is location, okay? Glorious holy mountain location. Just like north, south, east, west location. What does this mean? That Turkey is going to come and it is going to war Israel, and it is going to move and put its tabernacle. That means its seat of religious government in Jerusalem, the glorious holy mountain, yet he shall come to his end in Jerusalem, and none shall help him. So verse 44, we're supposed to be hearing news of war from Iran, and then we're supposed to be hearing news that Russia's getting involved, and this will stir Turkey to war. Turkey will move to Jerusalem, and then, and I'm going to put this in orange, it will be removed from Jerusalem. And this is the end of the last verse of Daniel 11:45. And what is the next thing that takes place? The next thing is 12 verse 1, which is the close of probation. This is the sign for the close of probation. When the king of the north moves to Israel and sets up his palace there, his tabernacle there, and when he's removed, this is a sign of the close of probation. Now, I know there's going to be a million questions right now, and we're going to see this in more places than just this because we need 2 or 3 witnesses to make something established. We see this in Revelation. We see this here. I'm going to show you several other places that this is actually prophesied about. Now, we go to Isaiah. Isaiah 27. Isaiah 27. And it says, hath he, in verse 7, Isaiah 27, 7. Isaiah 27, verse 7 and onwards. And he hath smitten him as he smote those that smote him, or is he slain according to the slaughter of them that are slain by him? So it's talking about a slaughter. Now, where do we see a slaughter? We see this in Ezekiel chapter 9. Ezekiel 9, and it says in verse 2, and behold, 6 men came from the way of the higher gate, which lieth towards the north, and every man a slaughter weapon in his hand. So there's a slaughter that's coming. But before the slaughter, verse 4, and the Lord said unto him, go through the midst of the city, through the midst of Jerusalem, and set a mark. The sealing and the marking takes place before the day of slaughter. Isaiah 27, it's talking about something that happens just before the day of slaughter. Verse 8, in measure when it shooteth forth, thou wilt debate with it. How much debate is there about Daniel 11 right now, about the Eastern question, about all these things? There's a huge debate with it. He stayeth his rough wind. There's another term for the 4 winds. His rough wind or whirlwind, very rough wind. In the day of the east wind. So as the 4 winds are being held, there's going to be an east wind blowing. Now, let's look at this again. Four winds. In our timeline, this is the close of probation, COP, close of probation, the 4 winds. We can see this in Revelation 7. Okay? We wait for the people of God to be sealed, and then the 4 winds blow. We've seen in Ezekiel, it's the sealing and then the slaughter. So this close of probation kicks off something called the time of trouble. This is Daniel 12:1. 12 verse 1. The 4 winds blowing. Now, when the 4 winds are held, it says there's something else that we're going to see, and there's going to be an east wind. And what is wind? It's war. So we're going to see a war in Iran. An east wind blowing. And this is going to happen before the 4 winds. It's a sign that the 4 winds are going to start blowing. Now, let's go to Exodus. Exodus chapter 10. Exodus 10. And we're going to read verse 13. And Moses stretched forth his rod over the land of Egypt, and the Lord brought an east wind upon the land all that day and that night. And when it was morning, the east wind brought the locust. And what did we see in Daniel 11, verse 44? The wind of the east, the tidings in the east, the war in the east is going to cause the locust, the Turk, to go to Jerusalem, and it's going to cause it to destroy. This wind from the east, perfect typology here, is causing the locust to come and devour and destroy Egypt. But then we look at verse 19. And the Lord turned a mighty strong west wind. Oh boy. Oh boy. So now this causes locusts to come. But something has to remove the locust from Jerusalem. And this is the west wind. And remember, we said there's an eastern-western question. What is in the west? What is the west? This is a war from America. So we're going to see a west wind blowing, an east wind blowing, and involvement from the north. We've seen in the news right here that Russia is thinking about getting involved in this war. So we're going to hear tidings from the east and from the north. It's going to trouble the Turk, and Turkey is getting angry, and they will destroy. There will be war. Then they're going to move to Israel, and then there's going to be a west wind, a war from the west that blows and removes Turkey from Jerusalem. And this is the sign that the four winds will immediately start blowing. There's so much happening here. Let me go to some questions, because I know there's going to be a ton of questions right now. Okay. Candy M. So is it actually Syria now that is the king of the north? And this is a great question. Here's the reality. What just happened in the Middle East? Turkey is in charge of Syria. Turkey is in charge of Syria right now. And this is unprecedented. So you can look this up. They have total control over this area, and they are ruling Syria. The original Ottoman Empire was that whole area. And we're going to see that all over again, taking over of the area. Okay. Ali Cole at Amazing Discoveries. How is two-wheeled chariot used as a gun? Okay. Let me share this. I'm going to share my screen again. Different screen, though. Just give me 1 second. I will show you this in one moment. Okay. I need to share my screen again. Okay. Do you see a two-wheeled chariot gun? This is the Turkish cannon. This is the fire-breathing Turk. This is the two-wheeled chariot that they used. It's exactly as the Bible wrote it. It is amazing. The Bible is so clear. Candy M. MacKenzie, was the papacy ever the king of the north? Did the papacy ever control Constantinople/Turkey? We have to rephrase your question to, did the papacy ever rule from Constantinople or Turkey? And the answer is no. Because the king of the north is one that is ruling from the north. And the papacy never did that. So the papacy never was and never was the king of the north. And this is something that is so misrepresented to try and shoehorn in this idea. And just so everybody knows, this idea that Daniel 11 is spiritually the king of the north papacy did not even come into play until after Ellen White died. Never. People bring up James White, people bring up all this. He still believed it was literal. He was like, I wonder if the papacy will literally go to Constantinople and then literally be in Jerusalem, rule from Jerusalem. So that was the question. He was wondering, is it Turkey or is it the papacy? But both literal, never spiritualizing a verse. It was always literal. And that's why, everybody's seen this is not the case. So no, the answer is no. It's never been the king of the north. Anonymous, what is the difference between whirlwind and full wind? I believe it is the same. From the study that I have done, I believe it is the same thing, the full wind and the whirlwind. Let me give you an example of this. If we go to Revelation 13, and all good Bible students should know this. Revelation 13 and verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. Now, what does sea represent? Well, everybody will say Revelation 17:15, and I would agree 100%. So we go there, and it says, and he saith unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues. But here's the thing. Does he use the word sea or does it say waters? So it's two words, but it's the same thing, right? Sea is waters. So we have to, we're reading what the Bible's saying, using common sense here. So the full wind is all four, coming from four directions. Destructive wind and whirlwind. To me, and what I see in the context going throughout the rest of the Bible, it is represented the same thing. It's a fascinating study. Go and look up whirlwind. And you can search it through. It's always these people of the East and connected to the people of the East. Okay. Candy M. I was under the impression that in DNR, verse 44 has already been fulfilled also back in their day. Did I just hear that verse 44 is what's happening now? So let me read you a quote from Ellen White. This is from 19 Letters and Manuscripts, letter 103, 1904, paragraph 17. Maybe someone can share that in the chat. We have no time to lose. Troublous times are before us. The world is stirred with the spirit of war. Does this sound like Daniel 11 is spiritual to you, or it's literal war, according to Ellen White? Soon the scenes of trouble spoken of in the prophecies will take place. The prophecy of the 11th of Daniel, talking about war, according to Ellen White, has nearly reached its complete fulfillment. Much of the history that has taken place in fulfillment of this prophecy will be repeated. So we're seeing that this is going to be repeated, and why? Ezekiel, where we're talking about the dry bones, 37. Ezekiel. Yes. Ezekiel 37, right? Why am I questioning myself here? I'm going to check it really quick. Yes. Ezekiel 37, I'll just read it now that I'm here. He sees these, he's in the midst of the valley, which was full of dry bones, and the bones were very dry. And he said to me, prophesy unto these bones. What wakes the bones? Prophecy. Prophecy is what wakes the bones, but not any prophecy. Get this, guys. I think this is providence that God made me turn here. Listen very carefully. Saith the Lord unto these bones, but I will cause breath to enter into you, and ye shall live, and I will lay sinew upon you. So I prophesied as I was commanded. We are commanded to prophesy, but not just anything. Keep listening. And there was a noise, and behold, a great shaking. So the prophesying caused the shaking amongst God's people, and the bones came together, bone to his bone. But when he beheld the sinews, there was no breath in them. So they didn't become alive yet. So what had to happen? He said unto me, prophesy again. We're supposed to prophesy again. The same things, not change our beliefs, give the same thing. And about what? Unto the wind. Prophesy, son of man, and say to the wind, thus saith the Lord God, come from the four winds. And when we prophesy about the four winds, the bones live. This is absolutely incredible. Now, if we go to Daniel 11, verse 44, it says, but tidings plural. And even in Uriah Smith, there's multiple tidings that are mentioned. Now, here's the big question. Are we on the final tidings? This is a very solemn question. I believe it's very likely that we're on the very final tidings of verse 44, which what does that mean? Verse 45 is the next thing to take place. If this is the final tidings, we need to be so ready. We need to be preparing. We need to leave the cities immediately because war upon war upon war is coming, and it's coming to America. There's going to be a west wind, and it's going to be there's going to be four winds, which means it is a global world war. That is what we're expecting. Now, while I have it open, okay. And just so everybody knows, our Daniel 11 study guide is going to be released very soon. And you should sign up to be notified. Sign up to our prophecy newsletter so you can be notified about that. I'm going to share my screen again. Okay. Right here. This is serious stuff. This is serious stuff. What is the Eastern question? Okay. I maybe need to back up. Let's see here. Eastern question. Whew. This is a lot, guys. This is going to be our longest live stream yet. Okay, the Battle of Armageddon, literal or spiritual. This is a presentation I have not recorded publicly. Not yet. Okay. Revelation 16:16, and he gathered them together into a place called in the Hebrew tongue Armageddon. Is this literal or is this spiritual? Again, we need to really be honest to the text here in Revelation 16 and not spiritualize. What Ellen White said we do not do is spiritualize away the plain, thus saith the Lord. Testimonies for the Church, Volume 6, page 14. We are standing upon the threshold of great and solemn events. Prophecies are fulfilling. Strange, eventful history is being recorded in the books of heaven. Everything in our world is in agitation. There are wars and rumors of wars. The nations are angry. And at the time of the dead should come. I'm going to skip down. As yet the four winds. Okay, here it is. Revelation 7. Revelation 7. You didn't expect this today. Revelation 7:1. And after these things, I saw four angels standing on the four corners of the earth, holding the four winds of the earth. And if winds represent war, it is world war from all four corners of the earth. The wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree, until the servants of God are sealed. Now we see here, as yet the four winds are held in connection to wars and rumors of wars, until the servants of God shall be sealed in their foreheads. Then the powers of the earth shall marshal their forces for the last great battle. This is not spiritual in any sense. We're going to see this even more. The nations of the world are eager for conflict, not spiritual conflict. Let's not spiritualize this away. But they are held in check by the angels holding the four winds. When this restraining power is removed, there will come a time of trouble. So when the angels let loose the four winds, that starts the time of trouble. In Daniel 12:1, deadly instruments of warfare will be invented, not deadly instruments of spiritual warfare. Vessels with their living cargo will be entombed in the great deep. All who have not the spirit of truth will unite under the leadership of satanic agencies. But they are to be kept under control till the time shall come for the great battle of Armageddon. It's right there. This literal battle of Armageddon, literal war, deadly instruments of warfare are coming, and this is a literal, serious world war. How does this connect to the Eastern question? Great Controversy 334 in the year 1840, another remarkable event. The prediction of the fall of the Ottoman Empire. Turkish government. We're not going to go through this. What does she say about she talks about Elder Smith spoke in the morning upon the Eastern question. It was of special interest. Just what the people wanted to hear. Uriah Smith, the Eastern question. I feel so grateful Brother Smith is not lost to the cause. He seems fully and thoroughly united with us. When he's talking about the Eastern question, he's united with Ellen White. Elder Smith spoke with great clearness. Elder Daniel speaks this evening upon the Eastern question. May the Lord give his Holy Spirit to inspire the hearts to make the truth plain. And please do not go and make the spirit of prophecy of none effect, saying she's not saying the truth is the Eastern question, when she's literally saying the Eastern question, may the Holy Spirit inspire the hearts to make the truth plain. If you do that, you make of none effect the spirit of prophecy. I'm being very straight tonight. There's no time left in this world to not be straight and not to tell you the truth until you get out of the cities and start preparing. Get yourself a mountain country property immediately. Immediately. Go to our How to Country channel. We have lots of information there. We have more coming. Our farm.amazingdiscoveries.org, our farm apprenticeship program. You need to be learning country living skills. Look at this. Evangelism 577. There's need of a much closer study of the Word of God, especially should Daniel and Revelation. Now, we have attention as never before in the history of our work. We may have less to say in some lines in regard to the Roman power and the papacy. Why? Because the east wind and the north is blowing. That's the next things. We're seeing an east wind, tidings from the east and from the north, and then the locust is going to go to Israel. Then we're going to see a west wind, and then the four winds. These are the next events that are going to happen. Daniel 11 guide again, guys, is coming soon. Make sure you sign up. Okay. Now, I'm going to skip through some of this. What is the Eastern question? This is by Wagner. The Turk himself understands that he will be driven from Europe and that then the Messiah will come. The one sure thing in this world is the fulfillment of prophecy. The events which follow the removal of the Turkish capital to Jerusalem, Daniel 11:45, are narrated in Revelation 16:12-21. The Battle of Armageddon is one of them. Elliot Wagner again, the scenes of conflict become the land of Palestine. It is here the battle of the last day of Armageddon. The king of the north is to come to his end. The development of the Eastern question. This is the present truth. What then are the scriptures to relate to Turkey in this time? The last verse of Daniel 11 relate to Turkey, which is the king of the north. This is A.T. Jones. A.T. Jones again. The last plagues, the preparing of the way of the kings of the east, and the gathering of the kings to the world war and world battle of Armageddon is the final meaning and the only culmination of the Eastern question. And this is what Ellen White said was the truth and needed to be made plain. These are so serious times that we're living in right now. And people are seeing as if there's been no clarity on this, and it's written over and over and over again. We see it over and over. These judgments are coming. The locusts are coming, and they're going to destroy. If we go back to Joel, I got to go back to Joel. Joel is one of my absolute favorite books in the entire Bible. Why? I have a personal experience with Joel, this book, and I'll maybe tell a little bit more of the details of the story another time. But if we go back here, Joel chapter 3, verse 9, proclaim ye among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty men, let all men of war draw near, let them come up. Beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. No more harvest. This is after the harvest is done. There's no more sowing, no more seeding, no more harvest. We're in war. Assemble yourselves and come all ye heathen and gather yourselves together round about thither. Cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Verse 12, let the heathen be wakened and come up to the valley of Jehoshaphat. For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. This battle of Armageddon, these events that are connected to Daniel 11, verse 44 and 45, we are seeing them fulfilling before our very eyes. Is this the final tidings from the east and the north? I don't know. But what I do know is, if I know that there's a tidings that's coming from Iran and from Russia, and it's going to cause the Turk to destroy, and it's going to cause them to war, and then they're going to go to Jerusalem, and they are going to have a war with America, and there's going to be a West war, and the Turk is going to bomb America. That's what the Bible is talking about here. Then I need to tell people, get out of the cities, because that is where the effects of war take place. And there's so much I'm not even saying right now because we don't have time. There is so much more to this story here. We've gone over a lot, but there is a lot more to this. Okay. John has a quick question. From what I understand, the Third World War happens after probation closes. That is what I understand too. It will start, though, before probation closes. And there's several reasons for that. We're going to have wars starting. There's going to be a final battle in this Third World War called the Battle of Armageddon. Now, I'm going to share with you one more thing, if I can find it really quick. I think I can. Give me one moment. I'm going to share one more thing here. Okay. I think I got it. And I'll share my screen again. Okay. Albert Pike letter to Mazzini, predicting 3 world wars. The First World War must be brought in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the powers of the czars in Russia and to make that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergence caused by the agenda of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. Did it happen? Yes. Is it because they're prophetic, that he's prophetic? No, because they are causing these wars to take place. And this is their plan. They want these wars. We're going to step down to the Third World War. Must be fomented by taking advantage of differences caused by the adjuncture of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the state of Israel, must destroy each other. This is making the hair stand up on the back of my neck. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We should unleash the nihilist and the atheist, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism. So he wants to remove absolute atheism, origin of savagery, of the most bloody turmoil. Then everywhere the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate these destroyers of civilization, the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from the moment be without compass or direction. So they're saying, we need God, we need Christ, we're Christian, we need direction. Anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer. What is this guy saying? The Third World War is going to involve the Muslim nations. It is going to remove them. And then the plan. It's not God's plan. Satan is going to appear and is going to be Christ to all these people who need a spiritual compass. This is another hint to a deception that Satan is coming before the Sunday law. That is a very scary deception. Satan is coming after that. He's coming at the close of probation. We will study that. That is one of the studies that we're going to be going over. We're going to have all the verses and all the references for this. You have to be watching what is happening. God is going to tell his people ahead of time, and we're seeing the warning signs. If we're seeing tidings from the east and the north troubling Turkey to cause Turkey to say that we're going to do the things that it's saying right now, we need God's mercy. We need help. As a people, we need to wake up. The preaching about the four winds to the bones is what wakes the bones. We need to wake up, stop being Laodicean. All the virgins slept. It's fine, but you better wake up, and you better get the oil in your lamp, and you better start studying, and you better be prepared, and you better get out of the city before it's too late and you can't get out anymore. And then you're destroyed with the judgments that are coming on the wicked. And if you're destroyed with a judgment that's intended for wicked, you're not righteous. This is really serious. And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to scare anyone. It's not scary if we know and we can see the signs and we can do the things that God tells us. He told Noah, there's a flood coming. Noah could have said, whoa, I'm scared. But God said, build a boat and I'll protect that boat. God says, get a country property in the mountains, away from the cities, away from the wars, away from the destruction, and raise your own food, because the problem of buying and selling will be very, very serious. So thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us this long. It's almost been 3.5 hours. These are such important things. Please share, please study. Look up the Eastern Quest. Just search it on the Ellen White, website, CD-ROM, whatever you have, app. Get these resources. The Eastern Question, by A.T. Jones. The Exposing Deceptions on Daniel and Revelation. Get the book Daniel and Revelation. We have the full book, the 1897 edition, the one before it was changed. The True Midnight Cry. All of these things are very important to study. If you haven't already, please order the Miller's Rules bookmark. Get very familiar with these rules. And we also have our Bible Symbols bookmark. I can't see it right now. Country Living, the booklet. We need physical things to talk to people physically. If it's no buy, no sell, and we want resources, we want to be able to read things, you need a physical Bible. And right here, this is the book, Daniel Revelation by R.S. Smith. It's nice and thin, you know. Quick, easy read. Not really. But a very critical read. When you start reading this, things will open up, and the Bible's going to be so incredible. So incredible. And there's things in here that he did not put that I would add. I'd make this book twice as thick. It's so packed. So you can get this from us as well, 1897 edition, the one that Ellen White talks about, not the new one, where they changed everything. We are having these studies every single week. It is a lot of effort to do that, but we have such a passion right now to warn the world. Also, we're doing everything that we can to get people ready and show them how to do this. I don't know if you've been already to our How to Country YouTube channel. You might have already seen on our Amazing Discoveries main channel, we posted a video and a short the other day talking about an event that we just had for the public. It was a farm day, opening of our farm here for the public. And every week, Sunday and Monday, we're open. We're selling veggies. We're giving them experience. We're talking about the garden. We're talking about why we're doing this here. And it's an amazing witnessing tool. We had 150 people come out, around 150 people last Sunday for our opening. And we're just keeping building this because we need to warn the people. And if people want to come and they want to learn how to do this, it's not just for us. We want people to come, learn how to do this, and this is what they can do to support themselves in the country. They can move from the city and they can do a garden and they can sell to support their family and grow and have their children doing these practical things away from all the evil influences of the city. It's an amazing thing, an amazing witnessing tool, and I really pray that God guide each and every one of you, that you start studying like you never have, that this, if nothing else, triggers you to study your Bible like you never have before. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the 10th study in the final countdown studies. So if you haven't already, go back to the start working your way through. We've talked about a lot of things already, and we're just getting warmed up. So thank you so much. Have a good rest of your evening. God bless. We better get to sleep because we have an open farm tomorrow where we're going to be talking with the community and sharing and showing them the garden. God bless and have a good night.